Hi, my name is Teresa, and I chose the Temple of Heaven in Beijing, China as my sacred site. The Temple of Heaven was first constructed in 1420 during the Ming Dynasty, 1368 to 1644, and was further extended and renovated during the end of the Ming Dynasty and during the Qing Dynasty, 1644 to 1911. This site is the largest spiritual complex for worship in China and consists of many structures, with the main structures being the Hall of Prayer for Good Harvests, the circular altar, and the Imperial Vault of Heaven. The whole site covers 660 acres of land and is located in the Chongwen district of Beijing. This site is sacred to the emperors who ruled during the Ming and Qing dynasty. The emperors performed acts of worship to the God of Heaven at the heaven worship ceremony and prayed for good harvest at this temple. The emperor would visit this temple 3 times every year. First, on the first month of the lunar year, to pray for the beginning of a good harvest season. Second, during the summer solstice, to pray to the gods for rain. And third, during the winter solstice, to thank them for a good harvest. Aside from being sacred to the royal families, this site was sacred to the residents, whom the sacrifices and rituals also benefited. This site was constructed as a more convenient way for the emperor to worship. It was more efficient and less costly than going from the capital of Dadu, which is now known as Beijing, to Taishan Mountain, almost 6 hours south of the capital. Prior to the construction of the temple, the journey to Taishan Mountain was made those 3 times each year and was very time-consuming. The site came to be considered sacred because the emperors, considered to be sons of God from the last 2 Chinese dynasties, would fast and hold rituals and sacrifices there. Physically, it was beneficial for the land to be flat. This made the construction of the site easy. Other physical characteristics, like a river at the south gate, also influenced this establishment. The natural resources and the preservation of the grassland emphasizes the importance of nature, and even more so, the importance of the connection with nature. The location of the temple was also considered the place where heaven and earth met. The construction in the southern region of Beijing, the capital of China, was also no coincidence. On this slide, you can see a map of the Temple of Heaven. At the southern part of the map resides the circular altar. The circular altar mound is actually the Temple of Heaven in the practical sense. During the Ming and Qing dynasties, the emperors would offer sacrifice here to heaven on the day of the winter solstice. It is an empty circular platform on 3 levels of marble stones. Each are decorated by extravagantly carved dragons. Directly north of the circular altar is Echo Wall and the Imperial Vault of Heaven. This vault houses the gods' tablets to be used at the heaven worship ceremony. It is famous for the Echo Wall, 3 echo stones, and the dialogue stone. The Danbi Bridge connects the northern part and the southern part of this site. This bridge, also known as the Imperial Walkway Bridge, leads to the Hall of Prayer for Good Harvests. It is a big palace with a round roof and 3 layers. This is where the emperor held the worship ceremonies to pray for good weather and abundant harvests. It is the earliest building of the Temple of Heaven and consists of the altar for grain prayers. The rest of this site consists of gardens, pavilions, and corridors, and the Palace of Abstinence. Located in the southwest of the altar for prayer for good harvests, this palace is where the emperor fasts before the heaven worship ceremony begins. This slide consists of an image of the sacred site and its surrounding area as it is currently. Everything industrializing around this site further illustrates how sacred it is. On this map, you can see subway lines and large roadways, but the site remains untouched. Culturally, the site reminds the residents of the area and educates them about the past. Having this temple of heaven and the surrounding park benefits the people by giving them a place to get away from the hectic life of the city. It affects the daily lives of the people, especially the elderly, by giving them a sanctuary. From an article I read, the elderly are full of vitality and are less alone because of the resources this site provides. The nearby landscapes have a great impact on the Temple of Heaven as well. After 1911, the end of the Qing dynasty, this site became a public area and has become a huge tourist attraction. This allows the site to continue being properly maintained. This also affects the culture inside the temple, as it is used for profit as well as for serenity and worship. Worship ceremonies still occur on Chinese Lunar New Year Day, but now with spectators. The beliefs and the geographic classification. The Temple of Heaven is of Confucian design. Confucianism is one of the three main religions in China. The two remaining are Taoism and Buddhism. The teachings of Confucianism put a huge emphasis on the importance of harmony. Social harmony is the ultimate goal of every follower. This means everyone knows their place in the social order. The 5 cardinal relations include ruler and subject, father and son, husband and wife, elder and younger brother, and friend to friend. These bonds or relationships are categorized in ways that show respect and obedience from one group to the next. There are 5 virtues taught in Confucianism. The first virtue is Ren. Ren, which means humaneness, can be identified as the quality of compassion for others. This includes both people and animals. The 3 concepts of Ren are love, mercy, and humanity. The second virtue is Yi. Yi means honesty and righteousness. The third virtue, Li, means propriety and correct behavior. The fourth virtue, Ji, which stands for wisdom or knowledge. The fifth virtue is Xin, which stands for fidelity and sincerity. These virtues teach the followers of Confucianism the basic ideas about how a person should behave. There aren't any specific practices that followers must abide by other than these principles. The philosophy of Taoism was developed off of Confucianism, but the beginnings of it are very unclear. Taoism emphasizes the importance of Feng Shui, or the art and science of organizing living spaces. This is done in a way so that the forces that exist in nature are channeled in favorable ways. Taoist virtues include simplicity and spontaneity, tenderness and tranquility, competition, possession, and even sometimes the pursuit of knowledge are to be avoided. Even more, war, punishment, taxation, and ceremonial ostentation are viewed as evil. The image in the back explains the distribution of the types of philosophies and religions throughout China. The development of this sacred site was determined to be in Beijing because that is the center or the capital of China, and that is where much of the religion is prominent. Next, we will talk about the structure of the site. We'll talk about how the site itself is representative of the beliefs of the people. Because Feng Shui is very important, the location of the Hall of Prayer for Good Harvest is located at what was determined as the exact point where heaven and earth met. From an aerial view, the temple halls are seen as circles or round because the circle symbolizes heaven, and the bases of the halls can be seen as a square. The square symbolizes earth. The wooden pillars supporting the ceiling are not helped by cement or nails, which further emphasizes any connections to nature. Furthermore, the circular altar consists of 3 tiers, the upper tier representing heaven, middle tier representing the mortal world, or earth, and the bottom tier representing hell. The upper tier is adorned with 9 stone rings. The number 9 has a very significant meaning in Chinese cosmology and represents the 7 layers to heaven. The number 9 is also very important as it can be evenly divided by 3. The number 3 represents heaven, earth, and hell, as does the 3 tiers to the circular altar. The blue domes represent the sky. Blue is the color of heaven, and the red is included in various areas of the structure to represent the imperial color. So the reason why I chose the Temple of Heaven was because I was first covering or researching Big Buddha, which is located somewhere else in China. After further research, I found out that the Big Buddha, or the base of Big Buddha, is modeled after the Temple of Heaven. I had never heard of the Temple of Heaven complex before and felt inclined to research and learn more. Also, it has been very interesting learning about the complexities of the Eastern Asian religions and philosophies, because that is essentially where I come from. I feel this project helped me realize that there are so many sacred spaces on Earth. In China alone, there are over 30,000 temples dedicated to Taoism. This number doesn't even include the other 2 prominent religions or philosophies in China. Reading about people's experiences to the Temple of Heaven made me realize certain places have special auras or feelings about them. I learned sacred spaces have a lot of meaning, not just in the activities done in the past, but they also hold a lot of meaning in the architecture of the space. I went to a sacred space last year, the Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque, and although I didn't realize the extravagance and the specialness behind the mosque, I think researching more of the history and the meaning behind the architecture would have made the experience a lot more valuable. After this project and researching the temple, I do think that if I were to visit the Temple of Heaven, I would appreciate the format of the site, the colors, and the engineering. I would also appreciate the materials the Temple of Heaven and the surrounding area is made out of, and just appreciate the feeling of the space overall.